map, and I'll talk more about the Northern Marianas, but in my judgment, the Northern Marianas is also not self-governing, and is also a colony, and that its status needs to evolve as well, as I'll explain. Caribbean has some of these red places, and so there are a number of small places that are still in this status that needs to change. And here's a statement from previous Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, in 2001, where he urged the administrating powers to move these places toward a self-governing status, and he specifically mentions Guam in his list. And so as a non-self-governing place, Guam has rights under international law. It has the right of self-determination, and many people list the right of self-determination as the most important human right, because, of course, that's the right to govern yourself and to govern your own destiny and live according to your own values and your own traditions. You're all familiar, of course, with the history of Guam. Guam has been a colony of first Spain and then the United States, and for a time under the control of Japan. So the United States acquired Guam in the Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War was a sort of a strange moment in U.S. history. There was a ship that was blown up in the harbor of Havana, Cuba. To this day, nobody's sure what happened, who blew it up, or whether it was an accident, or whether it was an act of provocation, or what it was. But in any event, this was a time when newspapers were lively and played a big role, and the Hearst papers and other papers started promoting the idea of a war against Spain and blaming Spain for the blowing up of the U.S. ship. And President McKinley from Ohio, Republican, got into this idea. And so the U.S. did go to war against Spain, and it was a relatively short, several-month war, mostly in the Caribbean. The U.S. fleet went to Puerto Rico looking for the Spanish fleet, and then the Spanish weren't there, so then they went over to Cuba, and they found some Spanish ships and had a few skirmishes, which we prevailed on. And then there was some activity in the Philippines as well, not too much. And Teddy Roosevelt was active during this period as a young man. And as a result of this several-month war, the United States acquired Guam along with Puerto Rico and the Philippines. And Hawaii was annexed that same year as well. So this was a spasm of expansion by the United States, and the United States all of a sudden became something of a world power through this expansion, and American Samoa was picked up about the same time as well. So this was a big change in the United States, and Guam then becomes part of the United States way off in the Western Pacific. So then, of course, the Japanese occupied the island for a few years in World War II. Finally, Congress passes an Organic Act in 1950. 1962 is a key moment because the required security clearance is lifted for Guam, and that means visitors can start coming, and you get immigration from other communities and start to develop tourism. Finally, in 1968, Congress allows Guam to elect its own governor and lieutenant governor, and then in 1972 to have a non-voting representative in the House of Representatives. Now, about this point, the people of Guam start taking more seriously the question of their own status, and in 1973 there is a political status commission, a plebiscite in 1976, with the vote favoring some kind of enhanced Commonwealth status, and then a constitution is drafted in the years that followed, but rejected in 1979 for several reasons, but among them is some disagreement about how the native people, the Chamorro people, should be treated in relationship to the other people here in Guam. So then, a Commission on Self-Determination is established after the Constitution is rejected. And in 1982, you're all familiar with this, of course, but it's important to get all on the same page as we try to figure out what to do next. And so the plebiscite in 1982 favors Commonwealth. There was then a runoff between the top two several months later, and again, Commonwealth is the favored approach. Now, what is a Commonwealth? What does it mean to be a Commonwealth? Among those options that got a lot less votes were the unincorporated territory, which is the current status, incorporated territory, free association, independence. I want to talk about each of these options a little bit to make sure we understand what the possibilities are. So then, based on the idea that the Commonwealth was the preferred status, the Commission on Self-Determination puts together a Guam Commonwealth Act, which was then approved by the voters here in 1987 in two plebiscites. Now, this is the key part of the draft Commonwealth Act, and it's important, I think, to understand what was in that act and what the complications were. Section 103 said that the Commonwealth Act itself could be amended only with the mutual consent of Guam and the United States. And then Section 202 said that federal laws, rules, and regulations passed after the Commonwealth Act would apply to Guam only with the mutual consent of the two governments. So Guam has to agree that any federal law passed by Congress would apply in Guam. Now, what exactly is that? Is this a stable relationship? Is this a relationship that's consistent with the U.S. Constitution or indeed with international law? As you think about this kind of a relationship, it's really more of a free association relationship than anything else, because it basically would have given Guam considerable autonomy to control the laws that govern it. And it's easy to see why Guam favored these provisions, but it's also, I think, understandable why the people in Washington found this to be an odd collection of ideas, because you're not really part of the United States if you can opt out of any U.S. law and decide, sort of pick and choose which laws you want to have and which laws you don't want to have. So this statute this proposed Guam Commonwealth Act never got anywhere, and it was really dead on arrival in Washington as people started to see what was really involved. And the Justice Department, even sympathetic people in Washington found that they simply couldn't swallow this proposal as a meaningful way for a relationship between Guam and the United States. And the Office of Legal Counsel, which is, this should be SEL, which is the lawyer, the Attorney General's lawyer, issued an opinion in 1994 saying that, well, even if the United States Congress accepted this draft Commonwealth Act, it wouldn't in fact bind the U.S. Congress, because it would only be a statute and it could be overridden by a subsequent statute. So even though the statute said you could only adjust it by mutual consent, in fact, Congress could adjust it anytime they wanted to, because it had plenary power. So that even if the United States accepted it, it would be disingenuous, because in fact under the U.S. Constitution, Congress can never relinquish its power to pass laws that apply throughout the United States. So this opinion is interesting because it says, well, we shouldn't agree to this because we would be lying. We would be agreeing to something that is simply impossible under the U.S. Constitution. And then in 1997, now this is during the Clinton administration.